Hello.
How you been?
Good, and you?
It's been good. I mean, you got to make the most of the situation. Things I think seem to be recovering, don't they?
Oops. Yes. So, are you in the UK?
Yeah, I had to move back during the lockdown. So
Okay. Okay.
I just want to say thank you for. I should have you.
Sorry.
Thank you for coming on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, how is it in France at the moment? Is it more or less back to normal as a whole? Or...
Yeah, it's back to very normal because I just saw a couple of French women do the bees yesterday.
The bees, what's that?
It's like that French cheek kissing.
Ah, okay.
So it's like social distancing is finished. They can get back to um, transferring germs.
Of course. For now, anyway. But one of my friends told me he's from Montenegro, and he said for 6 weeks there was no cases, but then this week they had about 230. So it's still iffy times, but fingers crossed, eh? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think it's the beginning. The bees is the beginning of the second wave.
Probably. Haven't seen any in London yet, so let's see.
I mean, the British people don't have these bees. They have the handshake.
Yeah, more of a handshake, but when
Yeah.
I start seeing fist pumps and like handshakes, then or hugs, that's when it's going to start again. So yeah, it's quite. I just want to say it's quite. I think I remember seeing you a while back on the French scene, and like what I want to know about is what got you into comedy, and what made you do a show on I Don't Sell You Flowers.
I like how you changed my title. I don't sell you flowers. I like it better than my name, my original title. I don't sell flowers.
Yeah,
I like how you added the you. I don't sell you flowers. I like it better.
Yes, I think that sounds better.
So I got started in performing comedy by accident, but I was writing some funny sketches, and I was doing some small videos which are funny from a long time. And I have worked on a script in around 2014 or something like that, or 2013 or 14, which was it was like a very dark script, in the sense like it was like very sad.
Okay.
And it was like based on a personal story, and I was adapting it to a script. So I was working on the script, and I realized this is so dark, so sad. I will not watch it. So I said I have to bring some humor in this.
Okay.
So then I started watching more stand-up comedy, and I mean, I was always into stand-up comedy. I was a big fan of Seinfeld from a long time, and then I went into more stand-up comedy, and I was teaching English in the French Grandes Écoles.
Okay.
And they I mean, I could do anything. I could teach them with anything. So I made a class on stand-up comedy, and I started teaching them stand-up comedy, even though I had no clue. I mean, I had never performed. I was swindling the French. And so I was teaching them stand-up comedy, and then I was in a business school, one of the very famous business schools in France, the top business school. I was teaching their stand-up comedy in that business school. It's like, I mean, what a crook you have to be to teach comedy in a business school when you have no experience in comedy? That's like a joke in itself. That was like such a silly thing. Like I was teaching them comedy. I was showing them Monty Python. I was showing them George Carlin, and I was making them analyze comedy. I got from a friend. I got this book, Comedy Secrets, and I just ripped it off, and I made a PowerPoint presentation to teach them how to write jokes. So that time I met somebody in Paris who was a teaching assistant in the school, HEC, where I was teaching. It's like the London School of Business in Paris.
Okay.
It's considered one of the best business schools in Europe. So she was teaching assistant. She told me there is a Paris scene going on. So she invited me to the Panam, which is a cafe in Paris, where you have a lot of stand-up. And I saw like that time there was Paul Taylor and all these people were performing. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I wrote a set as immediately as I got out of the performance. And then there was I met a friend, Tom Morton. He used to be in Paris scene. He told me about all the different open mics and things happening in Paris. So I started preparing for that. And there was one open mic by Sebastian Marx, who's like one of the pioneers of English comedy in Paris. And I was postponing to go on stage. I was like, for 3 weeks, I said, no, I cannot do it this week. I cannot do it this week. And then the last week, he said, he just pushed me on stage. And I was supposed to do 5 minutes. I did 15 minutes.
What? How did that?
And they tried to get me off the stage by many, many ways, but I was not. And then after a year, I had my whole show. I had a full show. Okay, my wife is complaining.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, I'm in the kitchen, so she's going to cook in the background.
Okay, that's fine.
So if you hear some water, it's the she's washing dishes just to give us some music. She likes to, whenever I'm doing a Zoom call in the kitchen. We have a baby. We had a baby last month. So baby is sleeping. The baby can tolerate all the noise from the street. But if I speak loudly, my wife screams at me. So then, I mean, I did the first, my debut in the Paris scene. And after that, I worked a lot and I got like my show in 1 year. I had a full show in 1 year and a full 1 hour show. I mean, it was more like 40 minutes. And I performed and I had like sold out shows, like 3-4 sold out shows with the Indian community. And it was like a hit. But then the second year I came back. I mean, I kept performing, and I said the second year I came back and performed other. So I've like done about 40 shows, 40 full shows of mine.
So how does it work? I mean, because I noticed when I went to the Great American Comedy Night, like nearly every performer there was doing an hour show. How come it like in here it's quite hard to get people to do, like if you do an hour show, to get people to come and watch?
It's very difficult because the most difficult thing about comedy, apart from performing and writing, is to get the people to come and watch you. So the marketing is a very big part of comedy, to have your own audience.
Because it's one thing, I mean, your show title is quite interesting, because this is in Britain we don't have that, but in France there's a stereotype, isn't there, that Asian people sell flowers, and you sort of completely marketed that.
Yeah, it was very cheap shot. It was very cheap in marketing because I got a little bit of criticism that it was exploiting the poor people, but I buy flowers all the time. I'm supporting them. And these white people who just said, oh, that title is not, is like mocking the poor. And
Yeah.
these people never, whenever an Indian or Pakistani guy comes to sell them flowers, these people are all embarrassed and looking the other way. And I am the one who's talking to the Pakistani guy, and I'm talking to him in Hindi. And I always buy flowers whenever I can. If I have the money, I just buy it. So it's like this white guilt of making fun of these flower sellers.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I mean, so it's a yeah. The title was a little bit not controversial, but it is catchy. It got me a lot of mileage.
But that's one thing I saw that was pretty good, like the way you guys were able to do our shows and like advertise it. So and one thing, so how does the sort of French scene work as a whole? Is it like with the French speaking and English speaking, how do they sort of collide and like work with each other?
The French scene is very developed. I have seen, they are becoming very, very good at it. And stand-up is new in France. Like in Britain and America, it's been there for many years. And comedy itself is a new concept in France.
Okay.
For them, it's like they were into slapstick till a few years ago. And they didn't understand. They ripped off Monty Python. They ripped off Spitting Image. And a lot of French comedians, they just stole jokes from the big American comedians.
Yeah, I saw there was a big article on Gad Elmaleh about how he stole lots of routines.
Yeah. So this was like a common, they don't call it stealing, they call it translating. This is the French tradition of translating. Like they just translate it and then they add the French touch. Like they add like a article in blog. They add some French touch. They add some French words and then it becomes very sexy, and it becomes original. That's like their understanding of originality. So the French scene is. I have a lot of friends in the French scene, and they are doing well, and they are really exploring their interiority, and they are exploring their voice, and so it's growing very well, and they are doing well. And but to be very frank, it's not like cutting edge like the Americans what they are doing, or even the British, because the British almost like invented comedy for me. Monty Python, and it's so good. It's so high concept.
It's so one thing I found also with the French speaking scene is that there's a few that sort of overlap with the English and the French scene as a whole, isn't there? Like Paul F. Taylor and Sugar Sammy.
Yeah. No, it's a good way of because I'm only doing English. I wanted to do French. Maybe, I don't know, I will do French, but I'm only doing English for now. And if you do both, you have a bigger audience. You have a bigger audience.
But what's that Paul F. Taylor? He's someone that's sort of known for doing both, and he's done that. So does he go on the what's it called, the Sebastian Mark's night, American Night, quite a lot? Then is there?
Yeah. No, he's one of the success stories of the Paris scene.
Okay.
No, it's Sebastian Marks and Paul Taylor, Sugar Sammy. Sugar Sammy does only French in France, even though he does English in other countries, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, you have a bunch of people who are doing both.
It's, and how does the English sort of scene in Paris work? Is it like you do a few open mics and then Sebastian Mark says you're good, you go on this show, and then like the guy in the American Night says, right, you're on as well. Oh gosh, what?
I mean, it's a small scene, the English scene in Paris. It's very small. Yeah, it's like all the problems of getting on. People are trying to do anything to get on the shows and trying to make friends and trying to bribe people. No.
50 quid here, Krishna.
Yeah, I mean it's trying to get stage time. That's like um, how to what do you call, how to become friends with the right people, how to yeah, how to buy them houses.
I mean, there's a lot of that here as well, but I think on a bigger scale. A lot of which arse
Yeah,
is.
exactly.
Just make sure it's a good arse to kiss.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Uh, you have to know the who is the boss in the, and you have to know how to. I'm sure there is a very good African proverb with the lion and the fox and things like that. I don't know that one, but that will totally summarize the scene of getting.
Yeah, I've got a funny story with Sebastian Marks. I was with Gertie, as I mentioned before, and I thought I watched one of the comedy shows. And
So I'm disturbing my wife because she's cooking,
uh,
and like in the other room, if I go, I'm disturbing my kids, and if I go in the street, I'm disturbing France. This is my existential crisis. As she said, I have to go in the toilet. Sorry, I'm like allergic. I have like allergies. So sorry. Can you tell me your question? I forgot. I didn't get the last question.
I mean, what should we do? I don't want to disturb anyone with the podcast as well.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I am a disturbance in the life of my wife. So it's normal. It's normal. It's normal. It's normal. I mean, wherever I am is the place she wants to clean. No, let's go on. Let's go on. Let's go on. If it gets violent, I will let you know.
Okay.
She's asking me to go on the bed, but then my son is going to be disturbed. Okay, let's go. Sorry. So, what was the question?
You also, I also saw that you run a podcast with French comedians. Is that right? Where you give them funny words in English?
Yeah, it's a way of. I mean, I have two reasons to do this podcast. One reason is to collect a library of French accents. No, it's not true. Like I try to get the French comedians who are really bad in English, so that I can feel superior to them, and I correct their English. No, I mean it's a way of it's like a little bit like trying to make it like a Ali G kind of a thing where you you tease them a little bit about their English, and
Yeah.
but I learn a lot from them. I learn so much about comedy because they have so much experience.
Mm.
They have their shows in the French, and so it's a pleasure to have these French comedians, and plus we had a sponsor. I mean, now the sponsor is going through a crisis with this COVID, but he sponsored a bunch of videos, and we are coming out with some new videos soon. I have a bunch of interviews which have already been done but not edited. So yeah, so you must have seen the compilations where I test them on teen slangs, on phrasal verbs, and things like that. But the whole interview is available on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole interview has like I asked.
This is.
Are you recording this?
Yes, I'm gonna put
Okay,
that.
okay.
It's
So
fine.
that'll be funny.
But it's
So, I am in the room with my son now, and he is watching Russian cartoons. So this is like a Russian cartoons.
ah,
I mean, he's a little communist.
oh God. This is
Okay. So we have to make it a little bit lower, because otherwise we'll have Russian background music.
no, that's fine. I can dance to it.
So sorry, you were what? I missed the last question. Can you just?
Yeah, well, one thing, like after like the podcast is finished, like give us a link to your podcast and like links to your stuff, and I'll post it in the podcast when it's uploaded. Let people know. But yeah, the bit I was getting, what was I getting at again? Yes. So yeah, it's you're just basically having a bit of you thought it'd be fun to interview like French comedians that don't speak English well, and you can have some yeah, it will make it entertaining. It's a bit of a USP in a way. You're sort of making it because that's your product in a way.
Yeah, it was like a way of also trying to promote English for the French, and trying to tell people that the French people are very timid about making mistakes in English. You can hear me?
Yeah. Why do the French have such good English though? That's the thing. Because if you go to UK, I mean, there are a lot of people that can speak French, but as a whole, most English people, as Muhammad Ali said, in Africa they can speak all these tribe languages, French, whatever, and English people can't even speak English, and that's like how. I find it amazing that the French in Paris speak fantastic English. It's bloody awesome.
Um, yes, but I mean, most people they still need to. The British they won the colonization. They won the war for colonization. I mean, they conquered the whole planet, the British. So English has become the language of the world. I'm just throwing the garbage.
Two things at once. That's good.
Because the only way I can speak is I'm out in the garden, so it'll be more. I mean, you'll have more light, and you can. I will not be disturbed for the next 20 minutes.
Yes.
So yes, the French. I mean, the British. French is a good language, but English is like it's a survival language. It's a language for survival. Everybody needs to speak English, and the French they need it, and but they are very timid. They don't want to make mistakes. It's like if you are with the French, and if you have two French people and you speak to one of them, I mean one of them tries to speak English to you, the other French person will be super jealous, and he will start judging the first French guy. I mean, he will start. He will say, "How dare this French guy speaks English? Because he sucks. He's got a horrible accent. How dare he speaks English in public?" That's what the other guy is thinking.
Yeah.
And basically, the French, the guy who is thinking like that, his English is worse than the guy. I mean, in question. So the French are super judgmental. So that's why I am.
Well, that's the quarantine I'm with my parents. This has been funny. This podcast, it's been brilliant. Yeah.
So the French are like they are their own worst enemy. They don't want anybody to speak English, because either they feel left behind, or they feel that it's a disgrace that they speak with such a bad French accent.
Mm.
So the goal of the podcast was to dédramatiser. This is a French word which doesn't exist in English. I don't know, is it de-dramatize? I don't know. It doesn't exist in English. These de-dramatize, or to downplay the problem of the accent. I mean, you should make mistakes. If you're learning a language, if you're speaking it, the most important is you should speak and make mistakes. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
And the best people who are not so, I mean, supposedly, who are not so touchy about their image are the comedians, because they can make mistakes and they will not be so they can make fun of themselves, comedians. I mean, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So that's why the podcast was that was the concept. And for now it's I have like eight of the interviews which I have to release before I invite new people, because there are a lot of French comedians which I would like to invite and continue the podcast. But now I'm just I just have to finish the editing, because it's 3 cameras. We are shooting with 3 cameras, and it's in a studio, and it's really beautiful. It's just we need to finish the editing, because it's like huge. We have to cut to different people, because we don't have a live editing setup. So I hope we will have one podcast next week.
So do you work with a couple of people on the podcast then?
I try to have some people to help me, but otherwise I can do it myself, but I don't have the time to do the editing. And it's huge. It's very huge. It's like very high quality, good quality, like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like Joe Rogan kind of a thing. It's like 3 cameras, and it's really nicely done.
Yeah. And of course the studio must cost quite a lot as well.
Yes, but that is like we have a sponsor for the studio.
Oh, okay.
So for that I mean, we put his logo in the end. That's Angelio Academia. They are helping us. They are allowing us to do content in their studio, because it's little bit related to languages and about English.
That's bloody awesome. But I mean, I've seen some clips of it. It looks like you're having a whale of a time, like having a laugh with them and seeing some of the responses. It's quite good. I think that's one thing that I like that about your podcast, because I like podcasts that have their own sort of thing. One thing I found with a lot of comedians doing podcasts, they just set it up for the sake of it, and there's no thought on like what you're going to bring, or what value you're going to bring, what's your thing. They just do it for the sake of it, and there's no thought of what do I want it to be, what's the product, and this and that. No.
Yeah, for me it's very important to give something that people can use.
Yeah.
So one aspect of the podcast is about comedy, and which, if you watch the whole podcast, I talk to them about what is their comedy origins, who are their inspirations, and what is the process of writing, how do they prepare, etc. And then we can talk about general themes, and then one aspect of it is about English. So you must have seen the compilations with many comedians. So that's about the English.
Yeah. I mean, and do you use a hosting platform? Because I'm using Acast for the moment.
Okay. I'm just putting it on YouTube for now. I have not had the time to. I've put some on SoundCloud, but I might have to see how to put it on an audio podcast only.
But even doing like all my podcasts have been on this, and they're nowhere near as big a setup as you. But like the time it takes for the videos to load, and then even though this is necessarily not complicated editing, it's just like, boom, it takes ages. I'm guessing it must take you like a week or two to film one episode or something daft like that.
Filming is not a problem. It's just the editing which takes time. Yeah. So the editing can take some time. Yeah, you're right. It can take a week to edit. I mean, if I'm really focused, I can do it in 3 days. I have to do nights, all-nighters.
It's yeah.
Because it's like generally it's my podcast is like, I mean, like the recently I have gone over the time. I have done like 1.5 hour podcast plus the audio separate. Like I have like half an hour of audio bonus.
Yeah, it's I think that's the one thing I don't like about the Joe Rogan podcast, because it goes on for like like sometimes 3 hours, and I think I prefer Mark Maron more than Joe Rogan, because at least
Okay.
they're a lot shorter.
I think you can edit it if you can take time to edit it. But the Joe Rogan thing has got clips, Joe Rogan clips. They are more interesting. So they just take out snippets of it, extracts. And that's what I'm trying to do also. I will, when I edit it, I will put the good parts as extracts.
Yeah.
So as clips.
But you don't want to do the whole thing, or you want to do
No,
both?
I do both. I put the whole thing, and then I put the extracts as well.
Yeah. It's like a little advert for the bigger one. If you like this, come and buy more.
Yes, exactly.
So you're a French teacher now, right? That's what you do? So English
No,
teacher?
I used to teach English. I'm still teaching a little bit, but I'm more into comedy and content. I'm making a lot of videos. I have a channel called Muntatska. I will send you the link. So with there, I put the videos. I'm trained as a filmmaker and actor as well.
Okay. But I find that role of you, like being a translator. Have you seen Little Britain? And have you seen like there's this program called Balls of Steel?
Sorry?
There's a program called Balls of Steel. Have you heard of that?
No, I've not seen it. I've not seen it.
Oh, it's a British program, and they do a lot of pranks. And there's this one where Mr. Inappropriate, and what he does is he comes in as a translator, and he just pranks all the people from other foreigners, and he gives them funny sort of words, and he gets them to repeat out loud. And I'm pretty sure, being an English teacher, you must have had a few moments where you have a class or you have a group of people that don't know any English, and you're like, part of me wants them to go outside and say shit or something to embarrass.
Yeah, I mean, I have channeled all my English frustrations teaching English into some of the videos. You can check them out. Some of them are quite popular. It's on my channel called Muntatska. There is one video where a Frenchman calls an Indian call center. I don't know if you saw that video. It was pretty big in the UK. So there's all the mistakes, which I put all the mistakes of the French people in that video. And then there was another video where a candidate comes for an interview, and there are two native English speakers, a British and an American, and they are playing a game, and they are playing a bingo. So like if the French candidate misses an H, one guy gets a point. If he misses an S, the other guy gets a point. So like for example, I have 3 dog, because the French, they don't say the H and the S. So I will send you the links to these videos. And these videos were like super popular in France and the UK also.
What one thing? What have been some very interesting and funny stories you've had during your time as a comedian and being a sort of a language translator? What experience?
I'm not a translator. I said I was an actor, not a translator.
French. So
I studied acting. I did acting and directing. I never did translating.
But but you said you used to teach English though. Oh, but just on the videos as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, I taught English in the French universities.
Yeah. So what has been what was like a really entertaining and unique story you had from from teaching French or English in universities?
No, I never taught French. I taught English.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said English in French
Okay.
universities.
Yeah. Once there was I was doing an interview for entrance in one of the big schools in France. There was an entrance test, and I was with another professor, another teacher who was the jury from another. He was, I think, British. No, he was American. He was American, and we saw this name of this candidate who was coming in, and his name was super British. It was a French student, but his name was British, totally British. And we said, okay, finally we will have somebody who is going to speak good English. And that guy had the worst English, and he said such things, and I started laughing in the middle of the interview. I mean, I think they found out, and I think I didn't call me back again for being the jury, but that guy was so bad that I could not have resisted laughing during the interview. And I was trying to, like my colleague who is the co-jury was looking at me, and he was trying to, keep a straight face, but I could not resist laughing. It was so bad, that guy's English. And he said something so stupid. I cannot remember exactly what he said. He said something really stupid in English, that French student. And so it was like a very bad moment, and I lost a job there. And it was a really well-paid job. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, like I hated teaching English in many places because English is not like my mother tongue. English is like my stepmother tongue. It's like the language of my stepmother. I mean, it was like shoved down our throats by colonization. So, I mean, I think it's a good language. It's very useful. But English is a way for Indians to colonize the West.
Yes, of course, yes. I mean, a lot of IT's done in India and a lot of call centers. That's how you. That's great.
No, I mean, for me, teaching English, like I have some people, for them, it's a pleasure because it's their language, it's their blood. It's in their, like they learned English with their mother's milk. I mean, I was taught English in this shitty Indian schools, which the British left us.
What's been how have you channeled that into your material and into like funny sort of stories on the comedy circuit?
Yeah, like, I mean, I have a joke where I go to a show and I say, do you guys understand my English? And like all the people say, yeah. They're trying to encourage me. Yeah. I said, it's Indian accent. It will be sexy in 50 years. When the Indian GDP overtakes the British GDP. And I say, do you have any British people in the house? And somebody says, yeah. I said, thank you for teaching us English. We had to give you all our natural resources in return.
And
it was a very expensive lesson.
What did he say? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for teaching us English. So, like, I mean, I make fun of the colonization and things like that.
Okay.
You are half British, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm half English and Irish, and then half Chinese.
That's what. Yeah.
I'm a mix. I'm a Mongol.
Yeah. Like Ireland is like the Pakistan of Britain, no?
Well, yes, more or less. I mean, yes, it is effectively, yeah. Especially Northern Ireland.
Actually, Northern Ireland is the Pakistan of the Ireland.
Yeah. I mean, Northern Ireland's divided though. They're starting to shift more, staying with the whole of Ireland, but
Okay.
it's changing. It's a long story. I don't want to go into it, but it's one thing I do want to say. I've had some interesting times in the. I mean, I met you at the gig. It was all right. It wasn't too bad. I like the fact, like the English speaking open mics in Paris had more audience than the ones in London. Uh,
Okay.
and the thing that I found quite interesting is I went to Sebastian Mark's show on a Sunday, and like the thing is, I'm not a good audience member, and it was really late at night, and they put me right in the front, and it was hard, man. But I sort of got a bit drowsy. I was like this, and I sat in the front, and they all noticed me.
It's your punishment.
And then I spoke to them a bit afterwards. I mean, I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just left it there and like come back into the Paris scene, then talk to them. But don't do it after I sort of was half asleep during the whole show. I mean, I wasn't sleeping. I just was a bit, and I was seeing everything. But yeah, I don't know what went through the other comedians' head. Like, I mean, they must have think, who's this arsehole? I don't know.
Yeah, that's like the greatest compliment you can give a comedian.
It's, yeah, I mean, it is, isn't it? They'll never forget me. But yeah, I made an impression. It wasn't good, but let's see what happens when I come back later on next year.
Are you still in Gaulier? Are you still in Gaulier?
I'll go back next year, in June, because I haven't finished the modules and I can't do second year. But Charlie's in Paris, in France at the moment, I think.
Yes.
But what are you going to come down to London to do some gigs? Or
I wanted to, but with this COVID, everything is messed up. So like, I'm not planning any tours, but I want to get back on my show very soon. But for now, I'm just focusing on making more videos for the next few months. I hope there's no second wave, which is very, very difficult, very bad. We're just hoping the second wave will not be like as bad, or because now it's like sunny, so it's good. But once once winter comes, I don't know what the corona is going to do in the winter.
That's the thing, yeah, and that's when it's at its peak. That's when it grows.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also don't forget it could be worse. There's lots of other viruses that could come in, and we're so focused on this one.
Yeah, the Chinese are working on something better.
That's true.
The new edition.
Upgraded version, eh? No, let's not go in there. This going dark territory. So I know that you've got a meeting at round in a few moments. So
Yes.
Another good podcast that I like watching is True Geordie, and it's not like the True Geordie podcast in any way, but I like what he does where he asks someone a big question at the end. And what I like to ask people at the end of the podcast is I like to say, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Good. Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Younger comedian, or younger actor, or younger director, because I have like a bunch of hats.
No, but this all encompasses into one thing that you're focused in. So if like, what's the general advice that you're given a mindset for someone growing up?
I mean, if I have to give myself an advice, it would be discipline and focus. I mean, I need to be much more disciplined and more focused to produce more content, and also take care of people. A lot of comedians have big egos, but you have to really look above that, and you have to look above all this petty egos, and try to be like genuine and not take it too seriously. Yeah, I think that's the best advice I can give for comedy is not take yourself too seriously,
Okay.
because we become like there's a lot of yeah, if you don't take yourself too seriously and work really hard, I think that can be a really good advice.
Hmm. And what is a quote that you'd like to live your life by, or that you are living your life by at the moment?
One quote I heard from a guru. I'm into gurus.
Robbins and all that.
Yeah, so I have a quote from a guru, and which I love is he said that you have to be totally dispassionate about yourself and totally passionate about everything else.
And why is that? Just because meaning not just working hard, getting rid of the ego, and if you give value, then you'll get more back.
I think, as I understand it, is like you don't take yourself too seriously, and you just throw yourself in life and do whatever you have to do, and try to do something, try to do whatever you feel really, and you do it to the hilt, and you don't give too much importance to yourself. That's what I understand it as.
Yeah.
So like the quote is again is total dispassion for yourself and total passion for everything else.
Yeah.
So that's what quote I will leave you if you want.
Yeah,
A quote.
that's a very good quote, and it follows. I think in all performing arts, that's a big thing.
Exactly. I mean, in Golier, in clown, I mean, it's the same thing, I think.
Yes. Yeah. It's some of the. It's. Yeah. It depends also if you're doing things for the right reason. Like in martial arts, like they say, if you're doing things for the wrong reason, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's sometimes I feel in performing arts, and well, a lot of the times in performing arts, and sometimes in Goliath and this and that, is that people do it for the wrong reasons. They don't do it because they enjoy it or because they're this and that. They do it just because they want the stardom. They're not doing it for anything more than that. I mean, a lot of people would take being famous if they could, but there's not more to it.
But in Golier, it's like it's pretty intense and pretty painful, no?
It is, yes, but I like his insults are just sort of what you're doing now. Like some people take it personally, but it's not personally at all. He's just telling you what you need to change. Yeah, I can't see the full thing because Corona sort of cut things short, so I couldn't have the full experience. But Goliath is just, I think the biggest thing with Goliath is he wants to teach you not to give a shit about what people think or do, and just do what you enjoy and get out and do it and be in the moment and not care too much, and not have all these insecurities and what people are going to think this or just don't give a shit and get the ego out of the question. I think ego is also worried about what other people think.
Yeah, I think it joins what the guru said. I mean, dispassion about yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a good lesson for everything. And then you can focus on what matters rather than superficial things.
Yeah, and I think it's very, very intense. Like you don't care so much, and you just go and do it what you have to do, and that's really good, because I think in comedy, one thing is like you have to be on and on. You have to be really totally on inside. You have to be like, your energy has to be on when you go on stage. You have to be fully awake. You cannot be like sleeping in the first row.
Yes, don't tell them about that. I don't like this. I mean, it's an embarrassing moment, but I will come back to Paris, and hopefully, over a few months, the silliness will subside.
Yeah, I don't think. Don't worry, they'll not know. They'll not know. They will not hold it against you.
I hope not.
Okay.
Been,
thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming, and I'll see you when I'm in Paris. And
yeah, sure. I will send you the links, and where will this be published? I mean, how is it going to be published? This.
So I'll publish on YouTube, Acast. It'll be on iTunes. It'll be on Spotify.
Okay.
And I may, if I look back at it, I may post some short bits in it that I think can be, but it takes, yeah, we'll see what happens. But
okay, cool. Okay, take care.
thank you, man.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Bye.